Okay, thanks for being patient, class. It's the problem with wearing a top from Banana Republic. How to attach without ruining said top. Okay. I think that's going to work. Okay, so let's kind of plow through this so you can start working on your project. We're going to be talking about the spread of culture. I already kind of gave you a preface, so let's get going. So if you remember about 2 lectures ago, we talked about hierarchical diffusion. That's where ideas move from important people to other important people, or from important places to other important places. And we looked at, remember the mini skirt? It started with actresses and models, and then eventually it kind of spread out to small rural towns. We looked at images of college student women, remember, in the 60s, and they went from the long skirts, and all of a sudden a group from Chicago, a big city, came to their college, and then all of a sudden they decided that that fashion was for them. So when we're thinking about expansion diffusion now, this is where you end up having more people knowing the culture. Hence the name, expanding, right? More people. Now, sometimes you can have culture spreading where the total number of knowers doesn't really increase. For example, if you have migration, let's say you have an individual of the Muslim faith, and they move to a new country, okay? And so the country they were originally from has lost someone who practiced Islam. But now they moved to a new country, and so they brought their ideas with them, but they don't necessarily have to share them, right? So the total number of knowers doesn't really increase, so that's not expansion diffusion. There are 3 subtypes, which we'll look at: hierarchical, contagious, and stimulus. We already looked at hierarchical. That was the miniskirt example. So we're going to look at 2 other examples of how culture spreads. Okay? More time here? All right, so let's talk about contagious diffusion. Contagious kind of sounds like you're catching a flu, or you're contagious because you have a disease, you're going to spread it to someone. And that is very much how contagious diffusion works. It spreads from person to person, and then that person spreads it to multiple people. So the number of knowers, the number of people who know about that culture, they increase dramatically. Here is a graph which shows the increase of users of a specific website. Which website growth do you think this is? It started in 2007. Facebook. Yeah, exactly. And you can see that Facebook use has really been very dramatic. Okay, it's been this contagious diffusion. Like, hey, I'm on Facebook. Why aren't you on Facebook? Right? Now it's Google Plus, but Google Plus really hasn't caught on. It was kind of like the anti-Facebook, but I don't think it's quite seen this growth in worldwide usership. Another great example is internet gossip. Okay, for example, the viral video, right, which was on our PCC, I think it was on our own PCC Facebook page, right, about the Coney guy. You guys saw that video? Practically 1/4 of the world has seen that video now. And then they found that guy, acting crazy. Did you hear about that? In the middle of the street? Yeah. Okay, so what is that a function of? This cultural spread of ideas. And we call that contagious diffusion. Here's an example for those of you who are kind of visual spatial learners. So there's an original knower of an idea. All right? And with contagious diffusion, it's not going to spread just from important people and important places. It's a wave-like spread. So if you've ever gone to a Dodger game and you've done the wave, it's coming, you're like, ah, right? And everyone keeps going on. You know you've done it. You know you love doing the wave. That in very many ways is how culture spreads, right? Why are you doing the wave? Well, because the person next to you is. So why are you going to do it? It's peer pressure. Right? If you're the one who stops the wave, the entire stadium is going to see your section, right, and boo you. So even that is a cultural phenomenon, all right? And it's spread via this contagious diffusion from person to person to person out outward in this wave-like fashion. So there's a geography to it. Okay? There's a geography to the wave. You can see it going around the stadium. People are screaming, right? Everyone's getting excited. The same thing happens with cultural ideas. There's a geography to that spread as well. Some examples include a few years ago, there was a rampant spread of internet gossip around the death of an actor by the name of Heath Ledger. Okay, and so you could see the spread of this idea across the internet, whether or not he committed suicide. That was the first rumor, and then it was found that he had some terrible mix of prescription drugs, perhaps. But that spread was from person to person. I heard this. Did you hear that? You know, by tweeting out an article or posting an article on your Facebook group, and then all your friends see, and then their friends see. Now, a different way that culture is spread besides contagious diffusion is what's called stimulus diffusion. And this one is more complex. Okay? The analogy here is a little more complex than the wave at a stadium. Okay, so this is when you have an idea. And any idea really is cultural. Anything that's learned human behavior is cultural. So there's some sort of cultural idea. Let's take the case of food. Okay, it's a cultural idea. And this is when you take that cultural idea and you apply it in a new culture. So you take an idea, you put a little spin on it, and then you bring it into a new culture. That's stimulus diffusion. Tex-Mex is an example of that. Okay? Have you ever eaten Tex-Mex food? It's really not Mexican food, right? It's like Tex-Mex. There's lots of copious amounts of lettuce and sour cream, right? Which you really don't find in Mexican food. But you take the idea of Mexican food, you bring it across the border into Texas, right? And you apply that idea in a new way, okay? Or you could leave it in the same culture, okay? And you can apply it in a new way within the same culture. And I'm going to give you some specific examples with music videos as well. So Tex-Mex food, right? That would be when you're taking this idea, you're moving it into a different environment, and you're tweaking it a little bit. Not quite Mexican food anymore. Here's another example of stimulus diffusion that really rocked the cultural landscape in the 90s. So, how many of you have ever heard of a TV station called MTV? Okay, maybe about half of you. So MTV stands for Music Television. And initially, it was a groundbreaking cable network that showed only music videos. Okay, that's all it did. And the music videos that it showed were really slow. Not that the music was slow, but the videos were slow. It didn't have very many images per minute. And initially, the videos that were shown on MTV totally related to the song. Like they just took the lyrics and like acted them out. Okay? And so what happened over time is the style, right, this idea of putting a video with music changed, right? They took the same idea of a music video. They kept it in the same environment, MTV, but they tweaked it a little bit. Took the same idea, all right, applied it differently in the same environment. And let me give you an example of this. So we're going to look at two music videos, one for Stayin' Alive and the other for a music song by the band Korn. The song is Freak on a Leash. So in the first video, they came out in 1977. And the video averages 17 images per minute, right? Pretty slow editing, if any of you have a video editing backward. And the images are directly related to the lyrics. So the lyrics are about, like, these guys surviving in a big city. So the video is of these guys walking around in a big city. Okay? Not a big jump. In the 1998 Korn video for the song Freak on a Leash, it averaged 52 images per minute. So the same idea was applied differently in the same context. The difference here is there's a rapid editing, and also the images is like some animation of some girl playing hopscotch and then a bullet comes by. And the lyrics are about like the corporate music industry and like selling out. So maybe the images and the lyrics don't quite match up in a literal way as they did. So first, let's take a listen to Stayin' Alive and look at that music video. And I want you to keep a mental image of that in your head and contrast that to the Korn video, Freak on a Leash. Okay, so here's the first video. So it's kind of slow editing, right? They're kind of walking around.